35. DOK.fest, die erste Edition at Home. Zusammen mit mir heute im Studio die Nele. Herzlich willkommen, schönen guten Abend. Mein Name ist Florian Schwarz. Wir begrüßen Sie ganz herzlich zum Live Q&A von MAIDEN, dem wunderbaren Seglerfilm, die erste Mannschaft, damals eine reine Frauenmannschaft, die um die Welt gesegelt ist. Und das Ganze in Kooperation mit der Ocean Film Tour. Und was die Ocean Film Tour ist, das sehen wir in folgendem kleinen Clip.
You go out there because it's a discovery of the other world. It's a lens that allows us to look inside ourselves and see who we really are.
Her name is Tracy Edwards, and her dream is to compete in the world's toughest yacht race with the first all-girl crew.
Being able to adapt is absolutely incredible.
It's another planet. You can fly.
Well, if that doesn't blow your mind, you have an unblowable mind.
Unser Kooperationspartner, die Ocean Film Tour. Und dazu begrüße ich jetzt Lisa Deventer von der Ocean Film Tour und die Protagonistin aus MAIDEN, die damals mitgefahren ist. Herzlich willkommen, Joe Gooding. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Lisa. Lisa, wir sprechen kurz am Anfang auf Deutsch über die Ocean Film Tour, die 7. Ausgabe und jetzt in diesem Jahr tatsächlich alles völlig anders. Was ist alles anders?
Ja, alles anders ist, dass wir natürlich wie immer fast ein Jahr lang auf dieses neue Programm und die neue Tour hingearbeitet haben. Unsere Premiere Anfang März noch feiern konnten, Gott sei Dank, in vollem Haus. Da aber schon die ersten Corona-Fälle in Deutschland bekannt wurden. Wir auch ein bisschen nervös waren, wir nicht genau wussten, kommen die Leute, kommen sie nicht. Am Ende sind die Leute noch gekommen. Also unsere Befürchtung, dass unsere Premiere dann nur vor halb vollem Haus irgendwie stattfindet, hat sich dann Gott sei Dank nicht erfüllt. Aber klar, es war der Anfang und wir haben noch ein paar weitere Veranstaltungen dann im Anschluss gemacht. Aber es wurde irgendwie immer mehr und immer mehr Auflagen von den verschiedenen Städten, sodass wir dann irgendwann auch natürlich gesagt haben, das können wir nicht mehr verantworten und macht auch keinen Sinn. Ist zu riskant, dass dann irgendwie einen Tag vorher auch gesagt wird, nee, jetzt keine Veranstaltung mehr. Und so haben wir dann erstmal alles pausiert und die Bremse reingehauen. Ja.
Die Bremse leider reingehauen, das heißt, die Filme sind im Moment gar nicht zu sehen. Hattet ihr irgendeine Idee, möglicherweise auch in eine Online-Version umzusteigen?
Ja, natürlich. Also als wir die Bremse reingehauen haben, waren wir noch recht optimistisch und haben irgendwie erstmal versucht, alles so auf Juni, Juli zu legen. Das wurde dann relativ schnell klar, dass es dann doch zu optimistisch ist und nicht funktioniert. Weswegen wir dann jetzt erstmal abwarten wollten, wie sich das alles so ergibt, bevor wir immer neu planen und dann doch wieder verschieben müssen, was auch natürlich einen enormen Aufwand bedeutet. Was ganz, ganz sicher ist, ist die Volume 7 von der International Ocean Film Tour, die wird zu sehen sein, entweder digital oder nachgeholt in Veranstaltungen oder auch beides. Also wir haben uns jetzt da den Anfang Juni als Deadline gesetzt, um auch dann klar zu kommunizieren, natürlich auch an die vielen Leute, die schon ein Ticket haben, die irgendwie warten, dass wir da ganz sicher sagen können, wie es weitergeht. Aber es wird zu sehen sein, wie gesagt, entweder digital oder nachgeholt oder beides. Und wir arbeiten mit Hochdruck daran, auf jeden Fall, ja.
Unbedingt, denn das Programm ist sehr sehenswert. Wir haben es vorher im Trailer auch gesehen. Es sind Surferfilme drin. Es ist natürlich alles, was mit dem Meer, mit dem Ozean zu tun hat drin. Und es ist auch der Film MAIDEN drin, über den wir gleich mit Joe Gooding sprechen. Dieser unglaublich packende Seglerfilm vom Around the World Race. Wie sucht ihr eure Filme aus?
Ja, nach verschiedenen Kriterien. Also das erste, wie der Name ja von unserer Filmtour schon sagt, irgendwie muss es was mit dem Ozean zu tun haben. Aber am Ende zählen für uns starke Geschichten, interessante Persönlichkeiten, Errungenschaften, Emotionen, natürlich auch tolle Bilder. Also wenn manche Filme haben vielleicht nicht die super spannendsten Protagonisten, aber haben dafür unglaublich tolle Bilder. Also da versuchen wir immer so ein bisschen das Gleichgewicht zu halten, verschiedene Aspekte zu zeigen und einfach die Vielfalt des Meeres aufzuzeigen. Was auch immer dazu gehört bei uns, ist natürlich so ein bisschen der Meeresschutz, den man nicht verleugnen kann, wenn man so eine Tour macht. Also die Probleme, die es gibt, aber auch Lösungsansätze, dass wir da einfach auch immer so einen Fokus haben, was das angeht.
Und es ist ja auch immer wieder interaktiv, das heißt also, ihr screent die Filme, man kann mit den Leuten dort auch dann vor Ort reden. Das heißt also, das ist auch wirklich ein sehr anschauliches und lebendiges Festival. Wie ist dein persönlicher Bezug? Bist du durch die Ocean Film Tour auch dann irgendwann zur Seglerin geworden oder zur Surferin?
Nee, zur Seglerin noch nicht. Wobei ich schon ein Angebot bekommen habe von dem Bruder einer aus der Maiden Crew, der bei der Premiere da war. Ja, der hat mich schon eingeladen. Nach
Around the World? Nein.
Nein, aber um mit ihm und seiner Familie segeln zu gehen. Nee, tatsächlich Segeln ist was ich ab und zu mal mitgemacht habe, aber bin keine Seglerin. Ich liebe das Meer, ich surfe, ich tauche auch und bin einfach gerne da, aber Segeln bin ich keine Spezialistin.
Man kann euch natürlich auch auf eurer Seite jederzeit auch verfolgen. Was ist das Erste an Reise oder beziehungsweise an wieder Outdoor-Aktivität, was du planst, wenn sich jetzt die Lage etwas entspannt?
Wahrscheinlich wird es Italien werden, weil ich einfach familienbedingt einen Italien-Bezug habe und ja, auch bestimmt irgendwas, wo man mit dem Auto hinfahren kann, wo man jetzt nicht einen Flug bucht. Deswegen wahrscheinlich wird es Italien werden. Aber mal gucken, wir sind da relativ entspannt und gucken einfach, was sich entwickelt, weil ich glaube, jetzt irgendwas zu planen oder zu buchen, das bringt wieder nur Stress.
Die Ocean Film Tour, unser Kooperationspartner seit vielen, vielen Jahren hier beim DOK.fest. Lisa Deventer, herzlichen Dank. Und für dich jetzt die volle Motivation, wenn du dann aufs Boot gehst, mit jemand aus der Crew schon connected bist, dir unser Gespräch mit Joe Gooding anzuhören, die dieses Rennen damals tatsächlich miterlebt hat und vor 30 Jahren um die Welt gesegelt ist.
Auf jeden Fall. Ich bin großer Fan und Joe hat so viele tolle Geschichten zu erzählen. Also ich wünsche ganz viel Spaß jetzt mit dem Q&A.
Herzlichen Dank, Lisa Deventer. Du wechselst sozusagen jetzt von der Kamera ins Audience.
Genau.
Wir können nämlich, we switch to English now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, because we're going to talk to Joe Gooding again. Hello and a warm welcome. Where are you located right now, Joe?
I'm in Wales, so it is, yes, it's a very, I live in the countryside, so it's very beautiful and very, very peaceful at the moment because no one is going out very much as most people in most countries have been restricted in their movements. So it's been lovely. I've been enjoying nature. It's been a wonderful thing.
Excellent. Joe, you were meeting Tracy Edwards, the skipper of the Maiden crew, and you raced in 89, 90, a good 30 years ago, the Whitbread World Around the World race. This race is called Whitbread Race. Then some years later, it was the Volvo Ocean Race. Now it's the Around the World race. So the name changed always a little bit, but what stayed is between 24 and 45,000 miles. Had you ever thought that you would be so long on a boat and do this hard race before you were boarding?
No, well, not until, I mean, I had a dream of sailing around the world, but I never imagined that it would be on a racing yacht. I used to live in a small group of islands called the Isles of Scilly, and racing yachts used to come in there, and I'd see them, and they would terrify me. Mm-hmm. So, but my dream was to potter around the world and to stop in different countries and get to know that culture and move on. But when this opportunity came along, I couldn't not grab it with both hands.
We will talk about this opportunity because this is when it comes to the point that Tracy Edwards recruited her crew. And in case to the audience, if you have any questions during our talk, of course, you can go via Facebook on our stream, and Nele will answer the questions later on. Joe, but way before you were hired for this ocean race, you met Tracy actually in Wales in a school bus. Is this right? How was your first connection to Tracy?
That's right. So Tracy moved to Wales when she was around 12 years old. So she was the new girl on the bus. The new girl on the bus. So so that's when I first met her, and we became great friends in school, throughout school, and you know, our friendship has just carried on and carried on. You know, neither of us had any idea of where our friendship would go, or that we'd do the things that we did. But yeah.
It started at the age of 12. Then, of course, you grew up. Tracy was around, I think, 16 when she took her backpack and made a tour through Europe. And you followed her in a way. She was traveling, she was sailing. Were you kind of being a little bit jealous then at the time already that she's going towards adventure in general?
Yeah. Well, I kind of left home a year later and started my own adventure. But I guess hearing about where Tracy was, mine wasn't quite the Caribbean or sailing across oceans, you know. So yeah, certainly a little bit jealous of what she was experiencing. And I guess for a few years we did lose contact. So.
There was no WhatsApp at the time, no mobile phone. So how did you get connected again then?
It was through some friends. So I was working locally, and some friends, mutual friends of ours, mentioned that Tracy was looking for an all-female crew and to sail around the world, and that was it. Really, I knew I had to.
Who of the audience is not dreaming about this, getting this call? It's definitely call to adventure. I mean, this is where all good stories start. This is where our book starts, where all films start. But this is, in this case, is real. This call to adventure came. You received this call. Just in between, before we go into this planning of the race, did you immediately felt or saw that Tracy has this complete determination, this like focusing on things, that she's like really keen on coming to a goal?
Yeah, definitely.
Her personality.
Yeah. I mean, she was always a strong personality anyway, and quite determined. So, you know, I had no doubt when she asked me to come on board that it would happen. It would happen. Yeah.
You had this trust from the beginning?
Yeah, or belief, you know, and I think that's true of all the girls on board, you know. It was, I guess we wouldn't have been there if we didn't believe it would happen, and that we could do it.
And so Tracy at this point was already becoming a sailor, very interested into sailing. She went to Greece. She hired as a stewardess. She worked as a stewardess on a tourist boat, where she met actually King Hussein of Jordania, which is for later on an important fact in this story. But this was way years before she started with you the ocean race, the Whitbread. When did you when do you think that Tracy was so convinced, because she took she took part in the ocean race at one point 3 years ago? That was like around 85, 86, and she worked as a cook at this time, and then she hired you later on also as a cook. What a coincidence. And when did you have the feeling, okay, she is the skipper who can organize a team, the first all-women team in history?
Yeah, well, you know, it's that initially she didn't want to be the skipper. So initially she was looking for a skipper. So so that was, you know, that was just something that came. You know, we you know, that when Tracy speaks, you believe what she says. You know, if she says I'm going to do this, you believe she's going to do this. You know, and that's and you know, as a team, you know, if you've got a team around you as well that believe you can do it, you know, people have their low times when they don't think it's going to happen. So there's always somebody that's going to lift you and pull you up, and vice versa. That's how it works in teams, you know. So the more of the crew that came on board, the more real it was becoming, really. It took a while, you know, we before we all got together, you know, we were all, we would get together for photo shoots and for interviews, and then because we didn't have the funding, we'd have to go and find work to do until we got the call to say, right, this is it, this is happening.
Yeah. It's a lot of preparation, 3 years in preparation. You need money, you need work, you need a lot of time and passion to take part at this race. So Tracy worked as a cook on the Whitbread race, and there was this one interview which is also in the film Maiden, and she was asked, how do you prepare the food? And she said, it has to be healthy and makes the crew happy. But I had the feeling that at this point she already was not too much interested into cooking, but more into sailing. Yeah. Is this impression right?
Yeah. So, you know, she wanted to be a part of the crew on board and to be part of the sailing, definitely, you know. So, and it certainly was a seed that got her thinking around an all-female crew. Certainly, you know. So it's.
And directly after this race, where she worked as a cook, she started to organize. She called up her mom and said, "I will do this." And her mom gave her full trust and said, if you say so, you're gonna make it. Then she started. Then she recruited 12 women, so experienced sailors. But you were not an experienced sailor at the time.
No, so my dad, I'd sailed with my dad. He was a sailor, but I'd never raced. I'd never crossed an ocean. But I knew that I could, and I knew that I would be a valuable part of the team. I don't know how I knew that, but I did know that. I have a story. Do you want a story? But
always, of course. That's why we're in here.
So I have a story. So around 85, I went to Australia and spent 6 months in Australia traveling. But the flight, I hated the flight out there. It was the most uncomfortable thing and the worst thing for me. So when I left there, and my friends came to see me off at the airport, I promised them that I'd be back, and I promised them I'd be sailing back. And 4 years later, I sailed back on Maiden, and that they were at the dock to meet us.
Oh my God, I get goosebumps in the
book. Amazing. Absolutely. Yeah.
Watching this film, and then, of course, coming to Australia. At one point, you arrive in Fremantle on the west coast of Australia, but this is not right now, because before you had tremendous things to do. So you were building kind of this crew together, experienced sailors with Tracy as a captain, but of course there were also very strong personalities on board, like Marie-Claude, for example. And then at one point it came that it costs a lot of money. There was this sum of like $6 million that the whole project would cost. And you try to recruit money, or you try to get money all the years, and it didn't work out perfectly?
No, so Tracy applied to a number that she mentioned to me was around 400 companies in the UK to sponsor us, you know, and there were companies that were led by male and female CEOs, and not one of them came back with a yes. So it was really and friends and family were fundraising, selling T-shirts, selling, you know, being really supportive, doing fundraisers to keep us going. And then, so we then had support from King Hussein.
Can you say came in then at a point where, because we're talking about that you still don't have a boat, the famous Maiden, which is the film title also in the boat. And at one point, Tracy took a loan on her house, I think, borrowed the money and bought a second-hand boat that you all had to like reshape and bring it into a condition of a racing yacht.
Yeah.
How much work was this? Did you work full time on the renovation of this boat?
That's all we did, really. Our lives were, our families didn't see us really unless they came to visit. So our lives were the boat. We worked every day if need be. We did have time off, of course, but if we were asked to work 7 days a week, then we worked 7 days a week. And to meet deadlines, and we were all down there every day. Yeah.
The one thing is bringing the boat into shape. The other thing is bringing the crew into shape. Because at one point you had to bring the boat in the water in Southampton somewhere, South England, and then you start training. You start like sailing to get all the maneuvers. How did that took place?
So we used to go out in the Solent, but we did a couple of races. We did a transatlantic to the Dominican Republic from Spain. We did a few races in Ireland, and we also did the Fastnet race as well. So as a lead up to the start of the Whitbread.
And at one of these kind of really close to the start of the race, which was in September 89, you had kind of these really dress up rehearsals. This really like in the theater, like the last rehearsal before then the big race starts. And then you broke your wrist. Is that true?
Yeah, so it was the Fastnet race, so that was the last race.
To this rocking island.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, so I went down below to find a sail, and the boat broached, and I just put my hand out to stop myself.
And what was the situation in this like very tension, 12 women waiting for the start for the race, and then one woman, who was you, fell out? Yeah. What was this feeling? And what was the situation for you and for the crew?
For me, it was, I was devastated because I wouldn't do the first leg. For the crew, there was a big change because we didn't have the right medication on board for me, because it was Marie-Claude hadn't allowed Claire, the doctor, to bring a full first aid kit. So, and that was kind of the final straw for Tracy. So there was a big change there as well. And it was really, a couple of weeks before the start of the Whitbread, that was really unsettling for everybody. And we had 2 new crew members come on board as well then, Angela and Michaela.
You described it right. That was the last straw in a way. That was this rivalry or this kind of fight between Tracy Edwards, of course, as the skipper. She was in charge. She was like the organization chef of this whole project. But then Marie-Claude Kiefer was her second skipper. And at this point, definitely, they broke up in a way. So Marie-Claude left the team.
Yeah.
And the question was in the room, like, who is responsible or who is in charge of this ship? Yeah, absolutely. You had the impression that the whole project could skip at this point and not take place?
For me, I never believed that, but I guess there was a moment that crossed the mind on some of the girls, and maybe even Tracy. She had to really work, or believed she had to work hard to encourage them to stay. And I think for some of the girls, they were, going to see how the first leg went, really. Mm-hmm. Because, everyone on the boat wanted to do it. That's the thing, and didn't want something like that to end that dream, really.
And I mean, you have to imagine the situation 30 years ago, 89 in September. The British press, of course, was like totally also focused, first of all, on this race, then the first woman crew. And then there was, I quote here, this war on the waves, where the British press, in its element, of course, they find a wonderful story, nothing about tactics, nothing about seamanship, just about this. So you were kind of really in the focus, being an all-female crew. Were there only male reporters at this time?
That's a good question. Yes, I think so. I don't remember being interviewed by a female reporter. That's true. Yeah.
And this was before the race. I mean, all these headlines and all this focus on you. Absolutely. And then on the other side, you had to concentrate on going on the biggest and most dangerous, or one of the most dangerous races. And then this day, the 2nd September 1989 in Southampton, you started this race. Could you describe, as it is in the film, this leaving Southampton towards Punta del Este, the first leg?
I wish I could, because I wasn't on the boat.
Oh, excuse me. That's my fault. You joined in Punta del Este.
Yeah,
That's quote of one of your colleagues. He said that the first what left was the boats of the friends who went aside.
That's right, yeah.
The second was then the land, and then you were only alone, and it was only you. Yeah. And that was the crew. And of course, you joined in Punta del Este because you flew over to Punta del Este then?
I flew and saw all the boats coming in. So I managed to, so that was a bonus, because I got to see all the Steinlager and all the big boats coming in, and to see life from the shore crew side of things. Mm-hmm. So that was good.
This is interesting that the shore crew also, the manager was Howard Gibson. He managed the shore crew, and you were then at this moment part of the shore crew. And I like this name because, as you mentioned, Steinlager 2, this is very German. Steinlager 2, jawohl. It's the boat of the New Zealand crew, and it's another length because the boats are divided in classes, and you were going, the Maiden is a 58-foot slab. And the Steinlager is a 85-foot, like a big thing. So it won, of course, the whole race because it was 30 foot longer. But you in your class did already pretty good on this first leg from Southampton to Punta del Este. I think you came in third.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a first kind of like a sign of admirance from the man.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Howard says in the film, that the reporters were taking bets on as to whether we'd finish that leg, let alone the whole race. So yeah, people did start to sit up, and like. When the girls arrived as well, it was there was no questions about the sailing side of things. It was all about I don't know
how you get along.
Yeah. There was a lot of focus on how we were getting on the boat, and
it's really strange. But then you were kind of self-confident, having done this first leg over the Atlantic, being in South America, being in Punta del Este. And then, of course, you had the next leg before you, which is the hardest leg of the whole Whitbread race through the South Polar Sea. Yeah. We talk about this in a second. I can also talk to the audience. We are live at the Q&A with Joe Gooding, a member of the crew of the Maiden Around the World Whitbread race in 89. Then it ends in 99. And Nele is on my side. Do we have already some questions?
Yes, we do. We have a lot of questions.
Joe, are you right on, before we go to this leg through the South Polar Sea, ready for some questions?
Yes, of course.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. But first of all, I want to start with a nice comment. Thank you for the wonderful film, said Eduardo Hope. And we have another nice comment saying, such an amazing story and film. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us. It was deeply moved. I was deeply moved and inspired.
Wow, fantastic.
Now the questions. It's for you, Joe. What scared you the most before the race started, or were you not scared at all?
What scared me the most before the race started? So honestly, at that time, because I'd broken my wrist and I wasn't on the first leg, my greatest fear was that I would lose my job. Mm-hmm. And that the girl that replaced me for that leg would take my place. That was my biggest fear. So, but as far as sailing was concerned, fear wasn't when you're at sea, you will have occasions when you get scared, but before you go to sea, you don't think about the scary bits. You've got a great team and you're all working hard together. But that was my biggest fear at that time. And I actually spoke about it to some of the crew, that I thought I'd lose my job. But it was never the case.
No. So. You were on board.
Yeah.
And how did you prepare yourself for this race, for this exhausting race?
So we did a lot of training beforehand. We were together. We all lived together in the same house. We went training every morning before we went to work. If we were in Southampton, we were out doing day sails. Mm-hmm. And like I said about the preparation, the races that we had to do in preparation to qualify for the Whitbread. So we did the Transatlantic, the Route of Discovery race. There was a group of races that we did in Ireland. All the boats went to Ireland to race over there, and the Fastnet. So we were, it was our life.
It's your life, yeah.
It was, absolutely. That's all we did.
I have so many questions. I can
just one or two more, and then we
make a break. Yeah. Did you ever go on a sailing trip with your girls after the big race?
With the girls? No. We kind of all went our separate ways. We all lived, all over the world. So it was. Some of us did, so I was involved with the project for about a year afterwards, and Maiden had gone to Holland to be sold, and she wasn't sold, so we bought her back. So I was involved with those deliveries, but no, the first time we all got back together again was for this film.
Okay. One
more? Okay. Yeah. Who had the idea to name the boat Maiden?
Oh, I think that's Tracy. Yeah.
It was not the name when she bought it?
No. I mean, initially it was Maiden Great Britain. Mm-hmm. And the hope was that it would be the name of the sponsor. But nobody came along to do that. So I think it's a perfect name for a boat that's going to carry the first all-female crew.
And it's actually an important story. Of course, the crew is first and the boat, but the boat also has a very nice story. It was bought secondhand, then you raced this race, then it was sold, then it was bought back. We talk about this a little bit later at the end of our talk, because the boat is still, of course, in good shape and is sailing. Tracy is sailing with it. But let's go back to this really challenging leg. You are in Punta del Este, you are on board, so it's your first leg actually. Mm-hmm. And your profession on board, or your position on board, was being a cook and being a photographer. Did you also took the moving pictures, or were you also filming on board? Yeah. And so all the material that we see in the film is from you. You are the DOP.
Yes, well, it's me, and Tanya did a lot of the filming as well. So
you and Tanya,
yes. So and we had a camera on deck we had an emergency button that we could press if we weren't able to grab the camera in.
It was a video camera, or
yeah.
Okay.
And, so it was huge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
hopefully you were not shooting on film. So you took photos, you were filming, you were like being the chef on board, you were cooking. As actually today, when we talked before, you made a wonderful pie. And we have a new function at Zoom here, we can smell it.
You can smell
wonderful. What pie did you make today?
Oh, it's just like a cottage pie. I don't know if you have cottage pies. So it's like, so it's vegetables and mince and quite scrummy, and then potatoes on top.
Was this one of your favorite things also to cook for the crew?
No. Well, on the boats, it was all freeze-dried food, so we didn't have any. I didn't have an oven. I had 3 burners, and I used to use I used to make bread in a pressure cooker, and use it as an oven.
And this boat was quite inside, and you see the pictures also in the film in comparison to racing yachts today. For example, the one Greta Thunberg took over the Atlantic. It was kind of comfortable in a way. You had a real little kitchen,
in comparison
you had a sofa, you had this wonderful pictures.
We didn't have a sofa.
Not a sofa, was it? Not a sofa?
Oh. No. Maybe a sail.
But you were like celebrating birthdays there, of course.
Yeah.
But were you most of the time then under deck? Or were you also at the same time up deck doing helping with sailing?
Yeah. I do the cooking and be involved on deck as well. But I wasn't involved in the watch system, and neither was Tracy. So we, if they didn't have enough people on deck, then you'd be there. But the most important thing was making sure the girls were fit and healthy and were had everything they needed really to be able to run a good watch system.
And the watch system is a keen and a very important thing, especially on this trip from Punta del Este to Fremantle. We're talking about like going really near Antarctica. We're going to talk about going really south, really cold, a direct line. And you decided, or Tracy decided, to go really very far south, which is very dangerous because icebergs are. And tell us about this watch system. You were not involved, but the others?
The others, so they did a watch system of 4 hours on and 4 hours off. And in the Southern Ocean, you have to wear, there isn't the clothing you've got today. So, you had 4 layers to wear. So it took half an hour to get dressed to get on deck.
Yeah.
Plus you've
got
to...
-20. It was -20, -22, the wind.
Yeah.
The lines were icy.
Yeah, it was free. Some girls had frostbite, lost the feeling.
Are you still cold 30 years ago? 30 years later? Are you still cold right now?
Am I still cold? I'm a freezer. I am a freezer. I have to say, I don't like being cold, but it wasn't so bad. I could warm up, and make bread and do stuff like that. So it was. But when there was enough to do, you could warm up. But there's a lot of sitting with sailing, and you're on the same tack, so the girls got very cold.
We're talking about 7,600 miles, being like weeks on water in this in this craziness, in the big waves, strong winds. And there is this quote: "The South Polar Sea takes no prisoners." Were you aware that this is really the most dangerous part of the race?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the other boats lost someone overboard as well, and our doctor, in fact, worked with them to save. 2 had gone overboard, and one had been rescued alive.
It was over radio with the other boat.
Yeah. So, and she, through her care that she was able to give over the radio, was saved his life, really. So, but yeah, the other guy, Tony Phillips, he died so sadly and was buried at sea then.
Yeah, and then at one point the South Polar Mare is behind you, and it's this very nice saying in the film, or this quote, that you started to smell the air of Australia. Could you describe this to us?
Yeah, I mean, Jenny does a terrific job of describing it in the film, doesn't she? You know, that you can smell land, you know, and you can
hundreds of miles
earthy smell. Yeah, absolutely. There's a change, definitely.
Eucalyptus, the hot earth of Australia. So you were going towards the west coast of Australia to go to Fremantle, and you arrived there. And I mean, in case somebody has not seen the film, but sorry, we spoiled this. You won. You won this.
We did.
And then at latest this point, there were these man crews, like really, I don't know, established in sailing since 100 years. And they were saying, oh my God, you won this leg. What was the feeling arriving first in Fremantle, in your class?
Yeah, absolutely incredible. We were ecstatic, of course, you know, we were overjoyed. What can I say? Well, it's that.
You have to see this in the film. It's amazing. You were there and you won this lead, and then a funny detail: you put up a flag with a woman fighting in a battle.
Battle flag. Yeah.
Did you plan this, or who had the flag took on board?
I would say that's a Tracy flag.
Tracy idea.
Yeah, definitely.
Always having a battle flag with her.
Well, you never know when you might.
Of course, no. Okay. So we are in Fremantle now. About this around the world race. We have some more questions.
Yes, we do. We have one question regarding your friendship to Tracy. Did the time that you spent on the Maiden, the experience you shared, change the friendship between Tracy and you, or you and Tracy?
I think friendships change all the time, you know, don't they? You know, but it is a friendship that'll never go away for sure. You know, and before Maiden, we hadn't spent much time together, so there was a period of I don't know, 6 years that we hadn't really seen very much of each other. So it was a case of getting to know each other as well. But it does change. But friendships change all the time, I find. Yeah.
Yes. At the beginning of the film, Tracy said that they are not interested in feminism. Did that change during the race? And was there a feminism theme on board?
There wasn't really. I mean, it was, I guess it did change because we were kind of ignoring the judgments that were being made of us.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't realize you're being a feminist until you do something like this, I guess. You know, because you can't do something like this as a woman and not be a feminist, because because if we weren't, you know, if we weren't there, then we would be doing what is expected. You know, I don't want to say that really, because that's a tough one, because people make choices and not everyone's an adventurer.
But you as the first all-female team at this time, you had of course tensions under each other and conflicts, and I mean 167 days on board a ship. This is really tough, but you had this theme being the first all-woman team, I think, that bonded you together. Is this true? Yeah, so I mean I feel like I've got, you know, 11 sisters. You know, when we got back together last year or the year before for the first time, you know, it was I know all you people, and I think I got to know them all individually better than anyone else, because I was the cook, because some of the other girls were on different watches, so they didn't get to know each other so well. Mm-hmm. But it was my job. I had to get to know them, because I had to get to know what they liked, what they didn't like, you know, and what
I needed on board that would be, that treat that would make them very happy,
Here more salad, there more sweets.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. One more question, or then we continue?
Yeah, one more.
All right.
Okay. Do you have the impression that talking about women in the media has really changed?
It has changed. It needs to change a bit more. But it's certainly, if just looking at sailing, if you look at sailing, women in sailing now and women in sailing 30 years ago, the difference is vast. You've got some amazing campaigns like the Magenta Project, that fully supports, and the Maiden Factor that supports the women in sailing, and there's far more opportunities now for women to achieve and to whatever skill they have is to achieve in that skill, but we all know that they are we've still got a lot of work to do as far as
because since that race every 3 years in the Whitbread or the ocean race is a female team from this point on, of course. And you mentioned the Maiden Factor. This is the maidenfactor.org. It's a foundation that Tracy and founded. Can you tell us a little bit about the Maiden Factor?
So Maiden was sold many years ago. And it was Tracy had a phone call out of the blue one day from the marina in the Seychelles saying Maiden is here. The owner's abandoned her and she is a bit of a mess, but we thought we'd contact you to see if you would like to buy her. And so that's when Tracy went about raising the funds to bring her back to the UK.
When was this? Which years?
That's a really good question. So that would have been, she got back to the UK 2017. So if that was 2016. Well, I think she first heard about Maiden being in the Seychelles might have been about 2014, 15, something like that.
And now she's in good shape. She's renovated. And what is Tracy doing with this foundation and encouraging girls to become sailors?
Yeah, so she's because of what's happening right now, she's back in the UK, but she's been going around the world promoting girls' education, supporting charities that help overcome barriers to girls' education. And they take on board, so they have an all-female crew, but they also take mile builders, so girls that and women that want to, because part of the problem on racing boats is that women don't have enough sea miles, so they provide opportunities for girls and women to build their sea miles then and take them on board, and they learn from an amazing experienced crew, and
to join then professional sail crews later on,
so that they can build their portfolio, so build their logbook and they have and build on that experience, so that they can't turn around and say you haven't got the sea miles. Yes, I have. Look at this. So
excellent. Have you ever been on the Maiden back in the last years?
Yeah. So when she arrived in the UK, there was a few of us, about half a dozen of the former crew that met her when she came in. She was a bit of a mess. Then after she had the refit, I did go sailing briefly on her, and when we were in the States as well, we saw her in San Francisco. So.
And did you immediately feel back at home?
Absolutely.
Back on the Maiden?
It was
like your same kitchen. It was the same kitchen as
the galley was the same. Yeah. So it was like, gosh, I've been here before.
Yeah, let's start cooking.
It was. I can't say that was my first thought.
No, okay.
But it was just like, it was our home for 9 months. So
fun. 167 days, this race. Talking about this in this talk, of course, it would be too long in our talk. We have some more minutes. You won this leg to Fremantle, and then you won a next leg, a tactical leg, and then you were like really kind of admired or taken for really serious by all the other crews. So you could continue your Whitbread race. And then at one point you arrived in Fort Lauderdale, and you were not being first at this leg, but you were like taking on the bath suits, your bathing costumes. So this was kind of a decision because then the newspapers, I quote also, British babes make a splash in the US. I mean, the press was delirious, no, at this point, because you feeded the press.
Yeah. So yeah. So that wasn't my favourite, I have to say. But it was, what they wanted was a distraction. We hadn't done so well. Maiden was a heavy boat, so, you know, and it was a light wind leg. So, so we wanted to, the aim was to distract everyone from the fact that we had lost
very
a few
good tactic.
hours.
That's about tactical, and actually it was the most spreaded sport photo of the year.
Apparently so.
Press photo of the year. Imagine Instagram 30 years ago, it would going like
absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, but it's also a kind of tactic. And then at one point, after nearly these 167 days, you arrived back in Southampton, so via Punta del Este, and you made it. I mean, if you see it in the film, you get goosebumps, you cry. It's an ocean of tears at the end, I think. But this is. Can you go back in this feeling for us for a second?
Oh gosh, I mean, it was an incredible welcome to finish the race. To have all those people to come out and meet us. Yeah. And it was, I think, well, for me anyway, and for most of the girls as well, I think we were all gobsmacked at just the attention that we were getting and how many people had made the effort to come and welcome us in was just incredible. It's really overwhelming, you know. And we had a boat full of, there was a boat with all of our families on board that none of us had seen for the duration. So
these are so strong pictures. Of course, they come like from helicopters, from news stations.
Yeah, incredible.
We have part of your pictures that you and Tanya shot. You have, of course, this film is very well montated together by Alex Holmes. Yeah. And having seen this films some years ago, or like actually for you, did Alex Holmes, the director of the film, build this story like it was 30 years ago when you watch these 90 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put the whole thing into 90 minutes. You know, there's an awful lot more that could have been told.
Yeah, really. It could be a series.
Yeah, absolutely, it could. Yeah, but you know, I think he's done a tremendous job of telling the story. You know, looking at the bigger picture. Because that is something I didn't truly look at after we'd done that. You know, and afterwards. Didn't really talk about very much, you know, only to people that knew I'd done it. But now it's like, oh yeah, okay, so we did okay. You know, we did make a difference, you know. And it's that thing, I've got this thing about wanting to change the world, but we've constantly been doing, and we constantly do that in what we can, and on the connections we make.
Yeah. And you certainly need time after the finish line was crossed in May 1990, yeah. 29th May, which is in some days the 30th anniversary of this. Some last questions?
Yeah, we have another nice compliment. Your story is so inspiring. Your race was a great sign of gender justice. And I have another question for you. What is the most precious you have learned back then that helps you still today?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Yes. What is the most precious you have learned back then that helps you still today?
The most precious?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that the greatest thing I learned was that there's always a solution.
There's always a solution.
There's always a solution. And if you work together, if you work as a team, it's one of the best teams I've ever worked with, and if you work together as a team, there's always a way to find that solution. It may not be what you want to do, but you can overcome and you can achieve far more than you believe you can. We don't always believe in ourselves, and we can put ourselves under pressure to not shine. It's the truth, I think. So allow yourself to shine, and don't put yourself under pressure to hide away, because you deserve to be out there.
And as we are live right now, it's some minutes to 10 o'clock in Wales. It's an hour earlier. Is it possible that Tracy Edwards watches us right now?
Oh, I have no idea.
So we say
maybe.
Definitely a big hello to Tracy. Joe, we are kind of at the end of this wonderful talk. There's a lot more in this story, a story which is very actual right now, which is very passionate, which is really a very touching film. The waves, sometimes you have the feeling, came out of the screen and splashes over you emotionally. So to all who have not watched Maiden right now, please go on our site and watch Maiden. It's still on until the 24th of May, of course. We have kind of at the end of this talk a little trailer for you of the Maiden. But Joe, first of all, a very, very big thank you to you.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. It was lovely to meet you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your pie now. It's still warm.
I will. I'm sure it is.
Excellent. And of course, we say thank you to the Ocean Film Tour, our cooperation partner, for this event, for this film. And in case you see Tracy, definitely say the best from us.
I will do. I will, of course.
All the others. And
yeah,
it's so inspiring. Thank you very much for this film.
No, you're very welcome. I'm delighted you've enjoyed it. And thank you for asking me to.
And all our audience, of course, at least in Germany, can vote for this film, the Publikumspreis, the BR and Dreisat Publikumspreis, exactly. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
The thumbs are like this, I think. Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah. 5. In total, you can give 5. Nele, thank you very much. Thank you very much to Robert, the man behind our screen. Thanks very much, Joe Gooding.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Enjoy our festival. It still takes place online until the next week.
I'm Tracy Edwards, skipper of Maiden, the first all-female challenge in the Whitbread Round the World race. Oh, shit. That is my smile.
We're off. The 5th Whitbread Round the World yacht race is underway.
The Whitbread was the race.
I made the decision to put an all-female crew into the race.
So this was the first.
Sailing in those days was very much a man's sport.
I don't see why I shouldn't be allowed to sail because I'm a girl. We were absolutely determined.
People were scathing. Well, it was an all-woman crew.
A bunch of girls. How'd you all get on?
There's lots of Vaseline for chapped lips, waterproof mascara.
A very well-known yachting journalist referred to as a tin full of tarts.
The further we got, the nastier this stuff would get. How many times were we told we couldn't do it? You're not strong enough. You're not skilled enough. You'll all die.
Some people call it the sea of certain death.
It's like hitting a brick wall every 10 seconds. Boom, bang. I made a couple of really stupid choices.
One mistake could mean disaster.
You're on your own. There is no hope if anything happens. It was just something I had to do.